Welcome to the Restaurants Grow podcast, where you get tips, tricks, and tactics on how to grow your restaurant business. Today on the show, we welcome Anthony Presley, CEO of TimeForge, a workforce management platform built specifically to help restaurants unify scheduling, labor compliance, and team engagement with one single tool. We don't see a lot of that out there these days. Anthony has a very unique founder story. He started in software engineering with game hacking, went on to found multiple tech companies, and ultimately built TimeForge to solve real-world labor challenges at the intersection of both HR and restaurant ops. He's a big believer in data-driven decision-making and empathy-led leadership, especially in this industry where manager tenure keeps shrinking and technology adoption isn't always consistent. That might be an understatement. I love talking to Anthony because not only do I learn something every time we talk, but he's always really good at inspiring some challenger thinking. Fun fact, Anthony grew up all over the world, including a few years in Cairo and Egypt, and also has a blue and gold macaw, which is also known as a pirate bird that can live up to 80 years. Anthony, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. That's a heck of an intro. I need to start paying you to do that for me anywhere I go, walking in a restaurant. Yeah.
I feel like you have an AI tool that can already do that better than me. Let's get right to this. What is like the one thing you're in talking to lots of restaurants, you're involved with lots of companies. What's the one thing that restaurants get right when it comes to retaining employees? A lot of people ask, what do they get wrong? What do they get right?
What do they get right? Well, I would say when you're talking about like hourly employees moving their way up, there's usually a lot of opportunities, even with small chains. Like there's a lot of opportunities. There's a lot of, hey, to get to that next level, this is what you should do. Although we talk a lot about turnover in the industry, that turnover actually helps create a lot of upward momentum for many employees. So if you are looking to get into the restaurant industry and then you want to move up, often you can do that relatively easily. And I think they get that right. The other thing that they get right a lot is a lot of states and the National Restaurant Association and all the state associations do a lot of training. And so there's a lot of focus on training to help you with drive your consistency. And that ends up being kind of a big thing. Like everybody gets trained. It's often other industries that we operate in, that's not always the case. There's actually really poor training programs.
Yeah. I want to make sure I heard that correctly. You're saying there's good training available in our industry and other industries need to take a look at what we do. Did I just hear that?
I think that's true. I think that's really true. And I think it's especially as you look around food safety and, all the OSHA stuff and slip and falls and all the things that make restaurant operators really pay attention to those pieces, those things where there's lots of high risk. I think we do a lot of training that other industries, I mean, I don't know if you've ever called a carpenter or an electrician out to your house and had them come work on something. Like you get some crazy stories, or a pool repair guy. And I mean, even these franchises that operate pool companies, like they don't get the level of training that we get in our industry. Yes, training is aspirational. You can always have more. And then when you have too much, like nobody ever says anything about it because they never get too much, by the way. Yeah, I think we get that stuff right.
I'd love to hear that. By the way, if we had done this podcast at like 10:30 yesterday morning, there was a guy with a ladder out this window fixing something on the roof of the building. And every time I looked out, it was like wobbly and like not pressed against the wall that I felt safe. So I watched it happen. He hopefully didn't fall, at least not in here, but he may have in the neighborhood. But hopefully his training can be inspired by our conversation. Let's take it up a notch. We just talked about what do we get right. What's one thing that sets the top restaurants apart? Like when there's an organization that really nails it, like what are they doing or how does that look?
Nails it from the employee perspective?
Or would training, retention, any of this kind of stuff? I mean, we're really talking about retaining employees, but the ones that really are good about keeping employees, what are they doing right? Like super right?
Yeah, super right. This is we are in the restaurant industry, but it turns out that paying employees well, like matters. And then it also matters that they're not having to commute a long ways, right? So those two things kind of go hand in hand, right? If I have a low wage job and I'm having to drive 20 miles, that's not going to help. The other thing with retention, though, is that once you get through the dollars and cents, if we just kind of assume everybody's making about the same, they're not, but assuming they're all making about the same, then Then you start getting into what are the other opportunities? Are you helping me with soft skills? Are you helping coach me? I mean, you know this from your time in the industry. You can go find a number of brands that spun out general managers, and those general managers are operating partners of, say, Outback, which did this for a number of years, right? You got Red Lobster guys that spun out of those brands and went on to go build their other brands, and they really knew those systems. Um, and so when you start looking at, they were doing employee reviews on a continual basis, they were giving feedback, they were growing their soft skills and their leadership training, and you end up growing up this culture that instead of treating the team like disposable, turn and churn. Like when you view the workforce that way, then you're just going to end up with a crummy experience all around.
Yeah, for sure. I used to work with a independent restaurant group here in New York City that had legit like the top 10 most popular Irish pubs in the city. And every one of them it was almost like a Ponzi scheme. Like they opened one, they opened a second one, they opened a third one. Then they like took the GM. They're like, do you want to go open one? We'll fund it. We'll be your partner. And then he taught somebody, and all of a sudden they had 10 pubs, and they weren't all in the same ownership, but it was the same system. And essentially they let a GM graduate, and they said, here's a check. You know what I mean?
Right.
I was like, wow, that's amazing. Like, what a smart system. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they're growing with their people. They're not putting artificial roadblocks up to go, well, you haven't been here 4 years yet. So because you haven't been here 4 years, the next band that you're going to graduate into, which is a system made by an HR person that wasn't really, I mean, it was designed by, not an operator, right? Probably. And so, but you run into those systems in corporate America all the time. You got to be here 3 years and 9 months to be able to go to the next level. Why? That's a good, that the people who are great are going to leave because they don't want to deal with that. But the people who are not great are going to be like, oh, great. Well, in 3 more days, I get to get upgraded to, cook number 4. And nobody wants to do that.
The other thing that I thought was cool about that group, just a sort of a tangential note here, is because the systems were similar, they never had an employee problem because of this place. Somebody called out, they just borrowed one from the other restaurant. Even though the concepts were different, the systems were the same. So if like I was short because 6 people got the flu, I could call the other Irish pub, like, can I borrow somebody? I was like, this is genius. Everybody needs to do this.
Yeah. I was discussing with a coworker the other day about gig work. We're doing gig work inside the medical field. The example we were using had to do with a dentistry practice, and you break a tooth. Like, believe it or not, the fix for a broken tooth is the same in New York as it is here in Texas, as it is in Alberta, Canada. And so getting a dentist or a dental worker to handle a broken tooth does not require a lot of retraining. But if you bring in someone who wants to run your bar and you have a flaming mojito and you make it this certain way, right? And somebody wants to know all the details around it, and then the next bar over doesn't have a flaming mojito, they have a gin and tonic thing, whatever. And like, they're not the same. It requires a lot of extra training, a lot of extra things that go in. And so it's harder then to get people up and onboarded, and those systems become more difficult. Maybe makes the experience more interesting for your customers, but it's harder.
Let's take that before I start asking silly questions about flaming mo's, which I have had. Let's talk about staffing. Let's segue a little bit. How important do you think is forecasting sales when it comes to staffing? Like, how do I make sure I have the right amount of people, right? Like, what does that look like? Or how do you think about it?
Yeah, I mean, look, you've got to always have a minimum number of people to run your organization, right? Like, you probably are not running a full service kitchen and restaurant with like one person. Like that would be a really rough day. So you gotta have some minimums that you got to bring in, but knowing the forecast of what you're going to do from a sales perspective, either start big, right? What are we doing for monthly, right? That's going to help you with your budgeting. Work that way backwards into your week, work that down into a day and a day part, and trying to figure out what your levels need to be. I mean, call me old school. We've been doing this since 2007, but like, I don't know how you build a schedule. I don't know how you know what to staff. I don't know how you know who to hire unless you have a reasonable forecast. So you need to know the forecast so that you can figure out who to staff and which departments and which positions. And that seems that having the accurate forecast, you start shaving off a couple points here and there. those are material dollars. You start, you got $1 million, $2 million, $5 million business, and you're saving a couple points on your labor because you're forecasting properly. And they're not massive changes. We're talking about bringing somebody in 15 minutes later, or having them go home 10 minutes earlier. Like it's probably not even material to the staff, but it's material to your bottom line at the end of the year.
I think people probably think of it as like, oh, well, Jim asked for 3 shifts and I can only give him 1 to make my margins. You're talking about go home 10 minutes early. Like,
right. That's right. Yeah. We're talking about go home 10 minutes. And it's funny is like, you know this, you've got a restaurant, like you stick your head out and you go, hey, who wants to go home now? I don't, we don't think we need you. Like someone is going to put their hand up and be like, I get to go see, whatever. I get to go do something 10 minutes earlier. So I mean, we're not talking about major cost cutting changes. We're talking about just really paying attention to the forecasts and the ups and the downs throughout the day so that you're properly staffed there.
Do you think in some cases it's just a GM or whoever's in charge of scheduling, like, I know the business. I know Fridays we need this. Do you think that's part of the reason we got here?
Yeah, it's it's the gut feel, right? And I think if you've been in a business a long time, gut feel like is good. Like you do know the ebbs and flows of the business. You know that there's a high school track competition across the street, and they're going to bring in a whole bunch of people this weekend, and you know what those things are. But COVID changed the game for everybody. You've got you had a whole bunch of managers exit. Average tenure of a manager in the hospitality space dropped from like 8 or 9 plus years to like 2.5. And so these are folks who don't know what's going on in the industry. They don't know what's going on in your restaurant. And you're asking them to take the 2 most expensive things, somebody buying inventory and somebody scheduling labor, 2 most expensive. I mean, you can't change the rent. The electricity is not changing, right? You might be able to lever marketing up and down a little bit, but that's kind of it. And so, your 2 controllable expenses, and you're in a spot where it's very hard to have that happen. So this manager or whoever's running that scheduling and the time and attendance, and they're kind of like, it's okay. I mean, I was in a room, what was that, 3 months ago, 4 months ago, and asked a bunch of operators what their number one problem with their managers building schedules was. And they said they copy last week to this week. Like that's what they do. Right? They copy. You were in that room, but did you copy last week to this week? And like, but things are different every week. They're different. People are out sick. People are, doing different production. You got different to-go orders, different catering orders. All of those things come into play. So if you just copy last week to this week or last year to this year, which is even a bigger sin, you're just not gonna have good controls.
I was literally going to ask, do you think it's a lot of cut and pasting?
Oh, that's. I mean, yeah. I mean, years ago, we did work with a brand. We'll leave them nameless to protect them a little bit, but we'll call them tens of thousands of locations. But, only like 6 or 8 employees in every store. And, you can do the schedule in theory on a napkin. That's what they told us. And like, well, okay, cool. But, it was take last week to this week, last week to this week. And I promise you, no one's super excited about going in one of those restaurants these days.
We'll go a little deeper here. Let's say that you're doing forecasting. Like, what is and you don't have an awesome tool. Like you're just trying to figure it out on your own.
Yeah.
Like, what's the right way to even think about how to forecast?
That's a great question. Forecasting can be overly complicated, and you can spend an enormous amount of time trying to figure this out because there's all these little outside variables that move around. Then you can try and go account for all of them. With AI, you can go account for even a few more. And you can this is where things get a little tricky. Like if you're the owner or the manager and you're getting paid, whatever, let's pick a number, $50 an hour. And you go spend 3 hours finding all of these outside variables, and you just burn $150 trying to save $70 in labor. Like, I mean, so you have to be a little bit careful of how much you go spend on all this time.
I had not even took that factor in consideration in labor management. Holy crap, you're totally right.
Yeah. Back in 2007, 2008, there was a competitor in the market. They're gone, but they had an amazing forecasting system. but you literally would sit down and you would go through and it'd be like, is there a sidewalk sale this weekend? Is there any problems in the parking lot? Like, how many cars do you estimate are going to come by this? I mean, I'm just getting a little silly, but they were just tons of questions, and you would answer all of these every week, go through this wizard every week and tweak and tune, but it would take you 2 or 3 hours to get through this setup. And then you'd say go, and then you'd leave, and the next morning there would be like the perfect schedule. But you spent 3 or 4 hours of your life jacking around with the schedule or the forecast. So yeah, so the most expensive guy in the building is burning all of their hours trying to schedule this. So you gotta be careful. The other end of this is also true. But I tend to think about, look, you can do most of the scheduling, most of the forecasting in Excel. It isn't magic. The underlying algorithms become magic, but you can go, hey, let me look at what we did last week. Let me look at what we did last year, right? Is January normally up? Is January normally down? Think about that. Put it in Excel, right? Go down and break down your day parts. Your POS should be able to kick that out for you. And you're kind of looking at your day parts and your sales. If you want to get really sophisticated, you start looking at each department and your to-go orders or catering. But you can start at a high level and just go, hey, and Excel, by the way, and Google will both do a linear regression. You don't have to do anything. You literally select the 4 or 5 cells, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, select them, and then literally drag them over. And Excel will fill them in with what it thinks the forecasts are going to be. It's not super sophisticated. It's not fancy. It's not going to win any awards for accuracy, but it's going to get you there better than you just guessing with your gut. And you can start to think about, hey, that's what that is. And then you can break that down into what's my labor. And then you've always got this question of like, could I operate with a few points less in labor? Like, what's the right number to think about there? And we tend to tell people, especially in this day of tipping, like if you reduce your labor by 2 points, but your tips stay the same, probably are operating at a level that you can actually keep operating that way. So maybe that's how you determine you're not overstaffed, is back to that data point. Like, I have real data that says that my reviews are still staying up. I'm getting my 5-star reviews on Google, and my tips are staying about the same. Maybe I don't need quite as much labor as I had. On the other hand, if it flips, maybe you bring in a little more labor to service the guests the way you want to.
Interesting.
Did that answer your question?
Yes, yeah. I like the mix of using sentiment. Is there like a simple calculation or formula for sort of like figuring out this on the top side? Like, is there like A plus B equals C? I'm not a math guy. I have no idea. But is there?
There's not a super simple one. No, there's not. I wish there was, like, hey, this is where it should be. But every operator has a slightly different. I think I'm answering the question you asked. Every operator has a different level of service. I mean, there's a amazing Hawaiian barbecue place that I like to go to, and I walk in and there's like a kiosk and one guy who is both the cook and the cashier, and they're running back and forth. It's a little understaffed, but they manage to keep their sales at the level they want with that kind of staffing. So not how I would necessarily run my restaurant, but that's how they run theirs. So yeah, I wish there was an easy full service tablecloth, all that. Totally different game, totally different math number.
Can we go visit that restaurant in these shirts? Like, would that be?
We can.
Okay. Am I wrong? But like, has this gotten harder since COVID? Has it gotten easier? Is it the same? Like, has it changed?
The employee retention is harder. There's a lot of studies about how much harder the retention side has gotten. We participated with the Coca-Cola Institute out of Atlanta a couple years ago, and did some research, some actual backed research with the Coca-Cola Institute, and 3 dozen retailers, some very small, some very large, and these were grocery retailers, but they all had food service, so it's not exactly restaurants, but the numbers we have around restaurants are very similar, and basically saying it is harder to retain employees now than it was before COVID. And there's a lot of factors in there. Some of them are a little bit surprising, but that has to do with the Gen A and Gen Z shifting their priorities. And so we talk about pay rates in the industry maybe aren't as high as they are in other industries, but other industries, you might be able to get some employee benefits that, to me, a bald guy with a white beard would go, hey, I'm not that worried about pet insurance. But it turns out actually that your employees might care about pet insurance, and having that as an employee benefit matters. Earned wage access is another thing. Like during COVID, earned wage access, thank you to Uber, I think, and thank you to Amazon, I think. Those two basically made it so I could go, hey Rev, where's my paycheck? And you go, we get paid on Fridays. You know where we get paid. And I go, oh, cool. Uber, I'm going to drive. Let me go deliver something. I go drive, and then I clock out and I get paid before I get to my bed. They change the game. And so if you're an independent or even in a mid-sized restaurant group and you don't have these kinds of tools to engage your employees and keep them around, they're going to go find somewhere else. And there's a lot of data showing that.
Is the retention problem as simple as pay everybody more? Like, is it that simple, or is it more complicated?
That's a great question. We could probably argue about this all day long, but there was actually a report that came out like last week about Costco. Costco has brought their own internal minimum wage up to like $32 an hour. And there's probably a lot of restaurant people that just threw up all over the phone, but it's 32. Yeah. Yeah. But their premise is very, very core to their operating, right? Is that if we have great employees and the employees love working here, they will take care of our guests better than I can mandate with an SOP or a process. And you see that in their numbers, right? Every store every year goes up. I think their average store is at 150 million, but they're crushing the minimum wage, and so they're just getting a lot more. But I do think that there is something to be said for that this constant turnover. If we paid everybody another $2 or $3 more, would that change it? I think so. And I think we see that within table service, right? White cloth table service, where you've got servers and bartenders that are making six figures. They don't leave. It's weird. They don't go. So like, I think I think it kind of answers itself.
So it really truly is it's the thing.
I think you can play a lot of games with a lot of other things, but ultimately, if everybody in the industry made $2, $3, $4 more, I think it would solve it. I mean, the reality is that a huge portion of the workers in our industry live below poverty. I mean, the poverty line. And so if you brought that up over that and everybody was able to live, again, we're talking about retention here, it would probably change your numbers quite a bit.
Probably potentially taking us down a rabbit hole, which I'm known to do. But is like employee satisfaction a major factor? And if so, like, how do you manage or understand that? Like, do these guys like working here?
Yeah. So I think there's a lot of ways to do that. I think the managers that, your managers that have been there a long time, that are great leaders, probably walk around, and they do that management by walking around and they're talking to folks and they're, hey, how are things? And they have great repertoire with them. But there's other ways to do that. And you got some modern technology. When someone goes to clock out, like send them a little survey, ask them a question, right? Our system does it. Other systems do it, but just add, hey, did you have a good week? Was it a good shift? Did you enjoy your shift? Yes. I mean, we do the same thing. You preach it, talking to customers. Let's ask the customers. Let's pop up a question at the very end of their visit, right? Or before they even leave, in the perfect world. And if they say, no, it was a crappy visit, if it was a horrible shift, why? Give me an answer. Record me an answer. Maybe the new manager sucks. Maybe a table stiffed them. Maybe they got yelled at because they didn't clean. Whatever the reason is, but the most interesting part of that is the exact same thing that happens when you do customer surveys, which is that as an employee survey, you want to do the survey and then you want to act on it. Tell them you heard them. I heard you. Let me see what I can do about that. Even if it's a silly thing, it's an employee suggestion box. Not everybody does this. But now you're getting employees that are feeling heard, just like a customer. So we spend all this time, effort, and money working with customers. If we spent 1/100th of that around the team members, it probably would change completely our entire leadership trajectory and how those employees thought we think about them.
It's amazing. People want to be paid attention to.
It's amazing. Yeah. Shocker, right? All this cool tech, AI. Like, no, it turns out you just want to talk to them and hear what they have to say and then do it, Yeah.
I have a curiosity question. This is a real curiosity. The post checkout or post clock out survey that restaurants are using, TimeForge are using. Is there a lot of shock when they see the first report? Like, do people get the result? Like, oh, that's what we thought. Or like, I had no idea. Do you see more of one of those than the other?
Yeah. I would say that the forward thinking teams that are doing a lot of this stuff anyway, and we just come in and we're just an extra tool, like there's no shock and awe. But there are plenty of folks that roll out a TimeForge the first time and they think they are just on it and they're not. And then it's like, what? I thought but it's good. I mean, especially folks that are going to change and, it's a good thing to hear. It's just like the first time you've probably had this before where you get a 360 feedback, like in your professional career, like you think you're a rock star until somebody tells you you're not. And then you're like, what is this? I'm a rock star. Like, so.
Oh, I have a 9-year-old. I get told all the time how bad my jokes are. So we're good.
That's right.
My employees can tell me anything. We're good. The skin is thick at this point.
It's a skill. Yeah. I had a 4-year-old nephew tell my 86-year-old grandmother yesterday that her hair looked a lot like his Uncle Anthony's. So yeah, sometimes you got to be careful what comes out.
When it comes to labor forecasting and thinking about like what employees want, employee sentiment, sort of all the things we touched on today, for an independent restaurant, whose responsibility is that? Is it the owner? Is it the manager? Is it the employee? Like, how do you, from an independent restaurant, who should be prioritizing this or thinking about it?
Yeah. It's so hard, right? Nobody goes into business to start a restaurant because they want to deal with this stuff. Like, this is not like, oh yeah, I just love employee sentiment and how do I start a restaurant? Like, that's just not the thing. So yeah, it's and as you get bigger, right, you end up with these massive chains. They've got entire departments that's their sole job is to work on this, whether or not they're working up for themselves or their franchisee base. In an SMB group, for a lot of reasons, this often falls into like a CFO or director of finance, director of payroll. I would tell you that those people can absolutely do it, but I would tell you, this is going to go a little bit crazy. Give it to the marketing guy. You're doing external marketing. You're doing all of this stuff. Turn the same tools or very similar tool set on your internal team. It's the same kind of thinking. We want people energized to think about being there. They want to be there. Give it to the CMO. Give it to whoever's running your marketing.
Thanks for giving me more to do my day job, Anthony. I appreciate it. Interesting. I do think that marketers have a different way of perceiving sentiment. So that does make sense to me. I actually would agree with that. Anthony, as we're sort of getting to the end of our time here, if somebody wanted to ask you some questions, whether it's about, employee retention or how to calculate forecasting to think about this, or even what the hell happened when you lived in Cairo, or learn more about TimeForge, what would be like the best way, or where could they find you that would make the most sense?
Yeah, this is where I'd plug in that you can go straight to LinkedIn and type in my name. It's down there. If you'll just plug in my name, you'll find me real fast. You can also go to Google, go to timeforge.com. I'm not hard to find. I'm around. Those would be the easiest 2 places to start.
Great. And for the restaurants that are using TimeForge, what's the thing or 2 things they like the most about it?
Yeah, one of the things that comes up all the time, we talked about it earlier, was the negative side of the labor management. I would tell you that being able to blame a tool when you're doing change management, like you're going from I was managing this way, and now I've got this tool and things have changed and my employees aren't happy, or they don't like the system, or they don't blame some of that on the tool. Change management is hard. And so there is the ability to be able to go, well, I don't know why we cut your hours 10 minutes. I mean, that's just what TimeForge said to do. And so you can totally blame that on the tool a little bit. And so we find folks who have been struggling with someone who's worked there 15 years and they've always worked the same shifts, but they don't need those shifts, and the restaurant doesn't need them, so they can blame that on the tool. So that's probably the number one thing. The number two thing is enforcing the schedule. It's really very simple, but 55% of the industry still does not today use a scheduling tool that's electronic and doesn't actually enforce the schedule. Do those three things, and like, you will probably make back 1 or 2 points on your labor, and that's all you had to do.
Amen. I'm sure everybody will love 1 or 2 points back in the labor, if not 4 or 5. Anthony, that's all the time we have today. Really appreciate it. If any of you guys have any questions about any of this stuff, just, again, reach out to Anthony. I can't reach over in his screen, but his name's down there. But again, if you're watching us, there you go. Thank you. If you're watching us on LinkedIn, you can just click over to Anthony's profile. Everybody else, thank you for joining us today. Please jam the subscribe button on YouTube, Spotify, iTunes, or wherever you like to listen. Thank you so much.